All right, beautiful. Back rolling. So those who weren't with us last time, this is kind of a little bit of promotion, a little bit of me bouncing around some stories, kind of explaining some stuff about the new book that I just wrote. It's called Storm Money. It will be in stores somewhere around the middle of June, late June. But I just finished writing the story, and today I just kind of want to talk about some things. A little bit of kind of what happened, a little bit of some background, kind of why I wrote the story. But yeah, so we did a little bit of a segment last time, a couple of weeks ago, where we did a little bit of talking about it. There were some things that I kind of left out on. I was a little bit vague, a little bit camera shy the first time we started. But today is a lot smoother. So today we got a good little itinerary of stuff to kind of run down of the new book that we just got out here. So the book that I'm writing about is it's called Storm Money. That's the title of it. It's about my experiences in my first hurricane that I went to cleaning up as a restoration worker down in Harvey. This was in 2017. Pretty much what background story is. One of my buddies, I was working at a bar at a time in Chicago. I was about 19. One of my buddies told me that they had an opportunity for us to make a bunch of money. This was about August. I wasn't going to be going back to school at the time. So I I was looking for some other work, some other stuff to kind of do. And he called me and he said, yeah, him and his brothers are planning to go to a storm to make some good money and do some work down there to help clean up the hurricanes. I didn't know too much about what he was talking about, but after a little bit, I learned, his brothers were in like construction work and restoration. Pretty much what restoration work is for the most part is mold, water. If you have any type of fire damage at your house, the company that gets called to kind of remediate that problem a lot of times is the restoration company. They have them all around the country. They have them kind of all around the world for the most part. But anytime there's like a natural disaster or you have even a biohazard problem inside your house, someone like for COVID, for example, for the first cleanups of COVID, a lot of times it was restoration companies going in, doing a lot of cleanup. So it's a vague kind of industry. There's a lot of different segments that go into it. There's water, like I said, there's fire, there's mold cleanup, biohazard cleanups. But we were down there to help clean up the water that flooded the city there. So really one of the first questions that Michael asked me last time was why I wrote the book. And I understood why he said it, but I didn't actually think too much about the question. I thought about it a lot deeper this week of like why I really wrote the book. Because at the end of the day, I was going to write it, I think, either way, whether or not I was going to try to publish it or not, whether or not I was going to try to sell it, just for personal reasons. Writing is always something I've done since I was a kid. It's always been kind of my peace of mind. So it helps me think through a lot of the things that I experienced just throughout my entire life. I've always kind of stuck close to writing, whether it be in music form, big into hip hop, or whether it have been in just writing different types of books and movies and stuff like that. So I've always been interested in that kind of realm. But writing a story like this, it's a little bit differently than any other story that I've written before, for the most part, because it's when I wrote it, it was a little bit tricky because it's because it's my personal experiences. It got a little bit mucky with trying to distinguish, um, am I writing it for, personal reasons? Am I writing it to heal? Am I writing it to even, am I vindictive? Have some type of vendetta towards anybody there? And, there was a lot of emotions that I went through when trying to write this book. It's not a book that I wrote at all to try to bash anybody or anything like that, or try to make anybody look worse than what it was. There's certain parts in the book that I write that aren't even too appealing for myself. Some parts of the book people are going to hear and they're going to be like, oh, what kind of person is this? But I tried to write it as honest as possible. As I was writing the book, I had a little bit of a note next to me. I had a note card that said "Never write from spite," which I really did try to do when writing this book, because I didn't want it to be a bash fest. I didn't want it to be, something that make people look, worse than what actually happened. I wanted it to be a true story for the most part. I think a lot of times in our culture right now, especially with storytelling, a lot of that's lost. I think right now, if you look at movies, for example, we're kind of at a place right now where storytelling is mostly there's one good guy and then there's one bad guy. But no one really explains that gray area because, you go to everyday people, everybody's life. No one is inherently good or no one's just inherently bad. There's always that gray area that gets mixed up a lot. And I think with the rise of different types of stories, different types of movies, different types of genres that you see today, for example, like the Marvel movies just being as prevalent as they are. Not that they're bad movies or anything like that, or just to knock it, anything like that, but that's just kind of where the culture is at, to where we are rooting on, good guys and bad guys more than we are rooting on deep stories that kind of show the full face of what people actually are. And I think that's, at the end of the day, I think that is kind of detrimental towards where stories are going, towards the way, towards the interest that people are losing in stories. I think a lot of people are losing interest in different types of movies and different types of writing because of that. Because it feels so Bill O'Reilly, so debate style, so one person versus another person. But really, what this story helps do a lot more than anything is it helps explain a lot of that gray area in a lot of people. I think, there's a lot of more. It's pretty technical, but there's a large side of people that you don't get to see every single day for the most part. And when you're with people the way that we were down there, and you're able to experience those kinds of things, and at the end of it, you're able to reflect. You're able to understand that gray area a little bit better than when you're living in the experience. For example, if I was to write this story right after it happened, I'm sure I would have written a lot more bitter examples about people. I would have felt a lot more bitter about things that happened or experiences and stuff like that. But after taking a lot of time to be able to reflect away from those things and be able to live through it, I think it's only right to kind of write about a story like this. And be able to display a story like this, because like I said, it is lacking a lot in this culture right now of what we have. So there's a couple stories that I want to get into today for the most part. We were able to get a little bit into kind of the base of what happened down there. The basics of, the first couple nights I got it down there and everything like that. Not really having too much equipment with us, not really having all the guys with us. A lot of guys going home after the first couple nights, but I'm going to bounce around to a couple of different stories throughout the book. I'm going to start mostly towards the beginning here and then just kind of go on. The stories that I'm telling today, like I said, there's many more stories throughout the book, of good and bad examples. I wanted to kind of get the most, a lot of the exciting stories here today. I wanted to just bounce around a couple of exciting stories that, some people might be more interested in than others. But yeah, so there's a couple of stories that I wanted to talk about today that I wrote about in the book. So where do we leave off? Last time we left off, I was with